Hey everyone, it's Yajin here, and today we're going to be talking about counting calories. And what I want to do is share with you my thoughts and my strategies, how I came to put those together, so that if you're currently deciding whether you should count calories or count macros or maybe count anything at all, you can kind of use this information in order to make a better decision for yourself. So let's dive into it. So I'm going to share with you basically for all the members that I'm working with at this current facility, as well as my previous personal training clients. We've never really counted calories or counted macros for the most part. And the reason why I have not encouraged them to count calories and count macros are twofold. And the first being simplicity, right? When it comes to habit development, something that I've learned that makes a really huge impact in whether or not people actually stick to the habits that they set out to achieve or make the changes in their lifestyles that they mean to is as simple as making it easy. And basically, when someone's just getting started in making any sort of change or adjustment to their lifestyle, you want to make it so easy that it's almost impossible to fail. Like literally, if you can make it that easy, the odds are they're going to probably be able to stick to it. And the harder or more difficult you make that for them to change and adjust, the lower the likelihood is that they actually follow that through. Now, when it comes to making nutritional changes in our lifestyles, that's something that can be very difficult, right? Think about it this way. You're changing your breakfast, lunch, dinner, any other meals that you have or snacks throughout the day. That's literally, some people look forward to what they eat all day, and that can be a really huge change. So you don't want to add on another layer of complexity, and not only now you have to change what you're eating, but now you have to keep track of every little thing and figure out, how many grams of protein is in this, how many calories was in this protein bar that I ate. And when you go out, it's like, do I need to be looking online? What happens if this restaurant doesn't have, a breakdown of the macros or whatever it is that you're supposed to be keeping track of? So, I try to get rid of all that. I consider it a lot of noise for the most part and make it as simple as they can. So what we do is we follow a series of simple nutritional guidelines. It's basically like 5 rules, and every day you just ask yourself, okay, meal 1, let's call it breakfast. Did breakfast follow the rules? Yes or no? Cool. Lunch? Yes or no? Dinner? Yes or no? Snacks? Yes or no? And then that kind of covers all the bases there. So it takes less than 1 minute a day, rather than being a busy parent, or maybe you're at work for 10-12 hours a day. You might not have the 20 or 30 minutes to try to keep track of how many grams of this or how many calories in that here and there and all of those other things. So yeah, that's kind of the first reason why I don't really encourage people to count calories. Again, it's for simplicity's sake. Make it easy for them. So not only is it easy for you to get on board with it, but it's also easy for you to stay consistent. And consistency, it's not just taking action, right? It's taking action plus being consistent with that action that really provides results. Now, for the second point is, something that I noticed after, studying a lot about nutrition and talking to various people, where you're gonna see tremendous results when it comes to weight loss by 2 simple rules: cutting out added sugars and cutting out processed foods. Those 2 things. Because what happens is a lot of the extra calories that people consume throughout the day are kind of tied up between added sugars and processed foods. And if you can remove all those extra calories, you should start seeing results pretty soon, if not right away. And this is actually something that the researchers also noticed in a 2018 study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, where they were basically testing the difference between a healthy low carb diet versus a healthy low fat diet, and what the implication between those diets are on weight loss. And they came to the conclusion that really low fat, low carb is pretty much the same thing, and there wasn't actually any variations between genetics or even insulin sensitivity, that those 2 things were kind of thought to have an impact on who should be on what diet before, but they're basically like, it looks like it's all the same. But the interesting thing that the researchers actually noticed was that most of the participants actually were able to produce very significant weight loss results by just following 3 simple rules. And what were those 3 rules? Cut out processed foods, cut out added sugars, and cut out refined grains. Okay. And I think it's the same thought process where it's like the majority of calories, extra calories that people are consuming. This is different than like nutrient dense calories that your body are actually using for, some positive or some process that it needs to go through. Excuse me. And I like to tie this back to the 80-20 principle, because it kind of, if for those of you who are familiar with the 80-20 principle, you'll know that it says that 20% of your efforts are providing 80% of your results. But at the same time, that means 80% of your efforts are only producing 20% of the results. So in this case, when it comes to weight loss, cutting out those refined grains, those added sugars, and those processed foods, those three simple things are probably going to be the ones that are producing the majority of results that you see when it comes to weight loss. And counting calories, counting macros, counting whatever it is that you are, it's probably going to be a lot of work. It's probably going to be the bulk of the work that you put in, but only providing minimal results, if any. Now we're going to touch back on that a little later here, but the point is basically, or the thought process that I went through in order to tell the people that I work with, we don't need to count calories, we don't need to count macros. What we're going to do is we're going to set a handful of guidelines. For us, it's no processed foods, no added sugars. If you're eating animal proteins, stick to lean proteins. For any carbs that you're consuming, make sure they're high fiber carbs. And finally, at least 50% vegetables for each meal that you consume. All right, those 5 simple rules, and then make it very easy for them to follow it, so that all you have to ask, and after a little practice, you understand what these 5 are, so you can kind of look at something, yes or no, okay, great. And literally ask yourself, did breakfast follow these guidelines? Yes. Did lunch follow it? Yes. Did dinner follow it? Yes. Did all my snacks? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, maybe no. And then at the end of the week, we can go back and track and say, okay, we had an 80% adherence rate, 90% adherence rate, 60% adherence rate. And based off of that, then we can determine, hey, are we on track? Are we doing good? Or do we need to make any adjustments to get us back on track, right? So really the goal of it is just to make it very simple for people, because again, I'm super big on making things easy. If it's easy, you'll stick to it and you'll get on board right away with that. So now that's kind of how we track it, and usually I just give our members a little checklist that they can download at the start of every week, and then they'll screenshot it, turn it in at the end of the week, so we can get a good idea of how they're performing. If you want that worksheet for yourself, it's actually on our website. If you check the description down below, there's probably a link that'll link you to that. You can go download it for yourself. And finally, to kind of end this video and tie everything together, I also want to point out a couple things for you to watch out for, because I try to always put this in context. So for those of you who are out there and you're trying to lose weight, this is probably going to be most effective for people going down to the lowest of about 15% body fat. If you're going sub 15% body fat, you probably will have to start tracking something. You're gonna have a pretty tough time without keeping track of every little detail, because at that point, literally every calorie counts. Now, for those of you who aren't so focused on like, oh, did I accidentally have an extra 30 calories? This probably is, tracking macros, tracking calories doesn't make as big of a difference, because realistically, let's think about this on like a regular basis. Are you really going to pay attention to whether you get an extra 20 calories here, 60 calories here, or maybe like 100 calories here and there? It's not going to make that big of a deal, as long as you stay consistent and hit that same ballpark amount, which you will definitely do if you cut out the processed foods and cut out the added sugars alone. But again, for those of you who have seen like those bodybuilding competitions, obviously like 20 calories, 40 calories are going to make a pretty big deal when they're trying to get that lean. In addition to that, I also want to point out that when it comes to like processed foods, I know we tend to demonize a lot of processed foods, but the way one doctor I heard put it was really interesting, where we have minimally processed and we have ultra processed foods. Now, our minimally processed foods, they're not, for example, you could consider it processed food if you had some vegetables that are chopped up and frozen. But our frozen is frozen broccoli bad for you? No, it's not, right? But then because processing gets thrown all together under this like umbrella word, we tend not to understand, like, yes, a lot of the foods that we consume are processed. However, there's a difference between, again, like our frozen broccoli and a Pop-Tart. I love Pop-Tarts, but sorry, Pop-Tarts. So again, when we're talking about processed foods, usually we're referring to ultra processed. Those are the things you want to skip out as often as you can. Now, another point I want to make is also when it comes to dieting, when it comes to nutrition, I usually have a principle where it follows also the 80-20 principle, but we're shooting for 85% of the time to stick to our routine, because it's what happens most of the time that counts, not what happens some of the time. If you go to the gym every once in a while, sorry, you're probably not going to see the results. If you eat well once in a while, you're probably not going to see the results. However, if you eat well most of the time, you're in a good enough place where you don't need to beat yourself up for having a slice of pizza, a cheeseburger, a couple beers here and there, because it's not going to make that big of a difference. I see a lot of people out there trying to lose weight, trying to make these changes, and they're doing good, but they hit a roadblock, and it's like you go out and eat fast food once and they beat themselves up over it. It's okay. Don't take it so hard. It's what you do most of the time that matters, not what you do some of the time, okay? I actually encourage people to go out and enjoy themselves, but again, shoot for that 85% mark to actually stick to the guidelines that you set for yourself to follow, and that way you'll see the results come out of building those positive habits in your nutritional life. Aside from that, let's see, we covered our calories, we covered our, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in this video. If you have any questions about this topic or anything related to this, go ahead, drop it in the comments below. I would love to expand on these ideas. This is kind of what really keeps me interested, so love reading those studies, articles, information about this kind of stuff. For those of you out there who this video was helpful for, do us a favor, drop down below, give us a like, subscribe to our channel. And also, if you have friends out there, do us a favor, do them a favor, share this article with them so that they know how to make those positive changes and start seeing results in their weight loss life. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.